billionaire, CEO, single dad, came to pick up his daughter. But she'd already found her long-lost sister. Before we begin, we'd love to know, what country are you watching from? Leave it in the comments. And at the end, don't forget to give this story a rating from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. Daddy, I found my sister. That's what she said, my 6-year-old daughter, clutching the hand of a barefoot girl in a torn denim jacket, sitting alone on the school sidewalk. I came to pick up one child, but then the other one looked up at me and whispered the word I hadn't heard since my wife died. Daddy. She didn't say it like she believed I was. She said it like maybe, just maybe, I could be. The sun was already dipping behind the skyline when Andrew Carter pulled his black sedan up to the curb. The glass windows of the elite elementary school caught the gold light like mirrors of a life he'd spent building from the ground up neat. Predictable, successful, he stepped out with the kind of polished precision people expected from him. Pale blue suit, matching tie, not a wrinkle out of place. To anyone watching, he looked like the kind of man who always had answers, but not when it came to his daughter. Every Tuesday and Thursday, no matter what his calendar screamed, Andrew came here to pick up Lily. It wasn't a chore. It was a promise he made the night his wife died, giving birth to the only part of her he had left. Lily was 6 now, bright, sharp, the kind of kid who colored outside the lines, not by accident, but by choice. He expected to see her waiting in that usual way, ponytail crooked, vest undone, arms waving, but she wasn't alone. There, sitting on the pavement beside her, was another girl. Blonde hair tangled like it hadn't met a brush in days, a white dress streaked with dust, no shoes, and a silence so loud it made Andrew's chest ache. He slowed his steps. The girls were shoulder to shoulder, as if they'd grown from the same root, and before he could say anything, Lily stood and spoke first. Her voice was calm, certain, like this wasn't a question, it was a fact. Daddy, I found my sister. Andrew blinked. His mind tripped over itself, trying to understand. Sister, he asked, kneeling. But it wasn't Lily who answered. The other girl looked up, blue eyes, too big for her face. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just whispered one word. Daddy. It wasn't said like she believed he already was. It was said like maybe if she was good enough, quiet enough, lucky enough, he might choose to be. Something broke open in him. She didn't ask for anything, didn't move toward him. She just looked at Lily, then back at him, like waiting for permission to exist. Her name's Emma, Lily said. Her mommy's sick, and no one picks her up. The other kids are mean to her, but I like her. I want her to come home with us. Andrew stayed there, crouched on the pavement. One little girl he knew, like his own skin, and one stranger who somehow already belonged. 2 sets of small fingers laced together. 2 hearts clinging to something that felt like hope. If she's my sister, Lily added, then maybe you're her daddy too. There was no easy answer, no protocol, no checklist, just a quiet truth staring back at him. He had come for one daughter, but somehow he might have found another. What would you do if love showed up in a child you'd never met and asked to stay? Chapter 1. The Girl Who Didn't Cry. The elevator doors closed with a soft hiss behind them. Andrew didn't say much on the drive home. Neither did Emma. She sat curled beside Lily in the back seat, hands wrapped around a ragged teddy bear that looked like it had survived more than one storm. Her bare feet didn't touch the floor. Her face barely moved, but her hand never let go of Lily's. Andrew had stopped at the school's main office before they left, asked a few questions, signed a temporary release. The secretary, frazzled but grateful, said the girl's name was Emma Green. No emergency contacts on file. Her mother was hospitalized a week ago. They were trying to reach someone from Child Protective Services, but the system had been slow. Slow, as in missing. That word still clung to the edge of his thoughts. When they stepped inside the apartment, Emma froze, not in fear, in unfamiliarity. It was warm, softer than the foster group homes he imagined she might have come from. Quiet, but not cold. She stood just past the threshold, jacket sleeves pulled over her hands, eyes darting like a stray animal waiting for the trap to spring. Lily tugged her forward. "Come on, this is the kitchen. We have juice and cheese and pancakes sometimes for dinner." Emma blinked. Pancakes for dinner. That sounded like magic. Andrew watched her as she slowly uncurled, one step at a time. He hadn't meant to bring her home, not really. But the silence in her eyes did something to him. That fragile, desperate kind of quiet that doesn't come from being shy, but from being forgotten. He couldn't walk away from it. Not now. An hour later, Emma sat on the corner of the leather couch, tucked under one of Lily's old blankets. The TV was playing softly, a cartoon with gentle voices, but she wasn't watching. Lily was beside her, coloring. Andrew stood at the kitchen counter, pouring 2 small glasses of apple juice. His movements were slow, deliberate, as if the wrong sound might spook the small guest in his home. "Emma," he said gently, "would you like something to eat?" She didn't answer right away. Her eyes flicked to Lily, who nodded at her, like a coach from the sidelines. "She likes pasta." Lily whispered loudly, "We had that at lunch." She picked out the peas. That earned the faintest curve in Emma's mouth, and not quite smile. Andrew made pasta. It was simple boiled noodles, butter, a little cheese. But to Emma, it was everything. She ate in tiny bites, careful and slow. Her eyes flicked up after every few mouthfuls, like waiting for someone to snatch the bowl away. Andrew didn't rush her, didn't speak unless she did. She never did. But when Lily leaned against her, Emma didn't pull away. That night, after bath time, which Emma watched but didn't join, and bedtime stories, which she stayed silent through, Andrew stood outside the guest room. He had added pillows, a nightlight, one of Lily's favorite old stuffed animals. Emma was already under the covers, her tiny frame barely taking up one side of the bed. He crouched beside her. "Emma," he said softly, "if you need anything tonight, you can call me. I'll be here." She didn't reply, but she nodded. Once later, Andrew stood by the large windows of his living room, looking out over the city lights. The skyline was sharp and cold, but his home wasn't. Not tonight. He didn't understand it, didn't plan for it. But the moment she whispered, "Daddy," something cracked wide inside him, not because she thought he already was, but because she hoped he could be, and that kind of hope, you don't walk away from it. Next morning, the smell of brewing coffee drifted through the apartment. Lily sat at the table, legs swinging, scribbling in her workbook. Andrew stood at the window, watching clouds roll over the horizon. His mind hadn't stopped racing. Where had Emma been sleeping? Who had been watching her? Why was no one there at pickup? He'd seen the reports, underfunded group homes, kids slipping through the cracks, but this wasn't a headline now. This was a 6-year-old girl with bare feet and bruised silences wrapped in his daughter's blanket. He checked his phone, still no callback from CPS. Behind him, the softest footsteps padded across the floor. He turned. Emma stood in the hallway, wearing the same denim jacket. Her hair was neater now. Someone had brushed it. Lily, probably. She didn't speak, but she didn't retreat. That was progress. Andrew crouched to eye level. "Good morning, Emma," he said. "Would you like breakfast?" She glanced at Lily. Lily gave her a thumbs up. Emma nodded. They made waffles. Andrew showed her how to pour batter without spilling. She concentrated like it was a science experiment. When she placed a blueberry just right, he gave her a high five. And for the first time, Emma's face twitched, like a smile had tried to push through the scar tissue of her expression. That afternoon, Andrew called Child Protective Services again. The case file was being reassigned. A social worker would be in touch. That wasn't good enough, but it was all he had. Emma stayed close to Lily all day, followed her from room to room, laughed once at a silly cartoon, and whispered when she thought no one was listening. She drew a picture with Lily, 2 stick figures holding hands. One had yellow hair, one had brown. Andrew didn't ask who was who, but that night, as he tucked Lily into bed, she said something that stuck with him. "Daddy," she mumbled sleepily. "Emma likes it here." "I know," she said. It's the first time she's not scared. Andrew didn't answer, but his throat tightened in the kind of silence that says more than words. Late that night, Emma's door was cracked open. Andrew stepped in quietly. She was curled under the blanket, teddy bear tucked beneath her chin. Her breathing was slow, steady. She hadn't cried once since she arrived. That's what unsettled him most. No sobbing, no tantrums, just silence. The kind of silence that comes after too many goodbyes. He sat on the edge of the bed, not to wake her, just to be there. She stirred, half asleep. She whispered, "Are you still here?" He smiled softly. "Yeah, sweetheart, I'm here." She didn't respond, but her hand slipped out from under the blanket. Small fingers brushed his and held on. She hadn't cried, not once. But maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to anymore. Chapter 2. The Pancake Test. Andrew Carter had always believed in structure. His empire had been built on predictability suites that always smelled like lavender and rain. Check-in experiences measured to the second. Brand consistency across 22 properties in 6 countries. Even his grief had been managed on a schedule. He worked, he provided, he raised Lily with love, warmth, and quiet devotion. But nothing in his polished, controlled world had prepared him for a barefoot girl whispering "Daddy" from a school sidewalk. Now, the rhythm of the morning was off. Not in a bad way, just different. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon waffles. Andrew stood beside the stove in sweatpants and a t-shirt, something he hadn't done on a weekday since college. His hair was slightly damp from the shower, a little too unkempt, and Emma Green was sitting at his kitchen island, still wearing the denim jacket, still unsure. But here, Lily was beside her, chatting about syrup and unicorn-shaped erasers, like bringing home a new sibling was the most natural thing in the world. Emma hadn't said more than 10 words since arriving, but she watched everything. Watched how Andrew poured the batter. Watched how he slid waffles onto their plates. Watched how his hand paused before setting a fork in front of her, as if he was checking whether she'd allow it. When she whispered, "Thank you," he almost dropped the coffee mug. Not because she'd said it, but because her voice didn't sound afraid anymore. Just small. Oh, 43 Andrew made a call to Lily's school. "Both girls will be staying home today," he told the secretary. Family matter. It wasn't a lie. It just wasn't something he had words for yet. 9. Kings May. They moved to the living room. The girls sprawled on the floor with crayons and sketch pads. Emma had taken off her shoes. Correction. She had no shoes to begin with. Andrew noticed a small scratch on the side of her foot and made a mental note to ask Lily what size socks she wore last winter. He lingered in the hallway, watching. Emma had drawn 3 stick figures again. One taller, 2 small. One had a ponytail. He wondered which one was him. 10. 32. A quiet moment unfolded in his study. Emma stepped just inside the door, holding something behind her back. Andrew looked up from his laptop. She said nothing at first, just watched him. Her sleeves covered her hands again. "You okay?" he asked gently. Emma nodded. Then she held out the picture. A drawing, it was him, holding Lily's hand, and hers, 3 hearts floated above them. He took it carefully, like it might tear. "This is beautiful," he said. "Did you make this for me?" She hesitated, then nodded again. He crouched so they were eye level. "Can I hang it up?" She looked surprised, but pleased. She pointed to the fridge. He walked with her to the kitchen and let her tape it with a flower magnet. She stared at it for a long moment, then whispered, "I don't want to go back." Andrew's chest tightened. He didn't ask where back was. He already knew. 11. Coffee gone cold. Dishes stacked neatly. The apartment was quiet again. Emma had wandered back to Lily's room. Andrew sat alone at the table, staring at the drawing. He picked up his phone and called Child Protective Services again. The same answer. "We're assigning a caseworker. Someone will be in contact soon." He pressed the speakerphone off, jaw tight. It wasn't enough. This girl had no one. No contact. No shoes. No structure. She was a human file lost in a system too busy to notice. And now, she was sleeping in the room next to his daughters. 37p. Some. He made grilled cheese, cut into halves, crust removed. Lily's favorite. Emma didn't complain, but she didn't finish it either. She pushed the last piece around her plate, eyes fixed on nothing. "You don't have to eat it all," Andrew said gently. She looked up. "I like it." But she didn't take another bite. Andrew didn't push. 204p. Oma Sims. Emma and Lily curled up under a blanket on the couch, watching an old movie. Lily had her head on Emma's shoulder. Emma didn't move. Andrew sat at his desk, phone in hand, Googling every legal process he could think of. Emergency guardianship, temporary custody, CPS protocols, foster care placement waitlists. Most articles made his stomach turn. The phrase aging out of foster care was the one that broke him. She was 6 and already forgotten. 3. P. Emma appeared at the doorway of the study again. This time, she didn't have a drawing, just a question. "Do you work all day?" He smiled. "Not today." She looked down at her feet, then back up. "Can I stay here when you work?" "Of course." She walked in, quiet as snowfall. He closed his laptop and watched her sit cross-legged on the rug, flipping through a picture book from the shelf. For the next 20 minutes, neither of them spoke, and yet it felt like the most important conversation he'd had in years. "Fiend, 25p. Dinner prep. Spaghetti." This time, Andrew let both girls help. Emma stood on a small step stool, carefully scooping sauce with a plastic ladle. Her face was a mask of concentration. She dropped a noodle, froze, looked up. Andrew smiled. "Happens to me all the time." He handed her a fresh spoon. She kept going. 7. P. Me. Emma said the longest sentence yet. After brushing her teeth with Lily's old toothbrush, she looked up at Andrew. "Do people always get to stay if they're good?" The question was so quiet, so raw. He had to close his eyes for a second. "Sometimes," he said, "but not always." She looked down. He crouched and gently lifted her chin. "But here, you don't have to be good to stay. You just have to be you." She stared at him for a moment, then nodded and went to bed without another word. Later that night, Andrew sat alone at the dining room table, Emma's picture still taped to the fridge. He thought about Rachel Green, Emma's mother, somewhere, lying in a hospital bed, probably unaware that her daughter had been carried home by a stranger. He didn't know what kind of woman she was, didn't know her story, but he knew this. Her child deserved more than to wait in silence. She deserved someone who would stay, and he was willing to fight for that, even if the system didn't understand it. She'd said 7 words all day, but they were the kind that built homes, and Andrew Carter was listening. Chapter 3. Do people have more than one daddy? Ben. Sepinoid P. Missy. The apartment was quiet, but Andrew couldn't sleep. He stood by the window in his study, city lights flickering like tiny stars far below. His fingers rested lightly on the back of the armchair. On his desk, the drawing Emma had made still clung to the fridge magnet he'd used earlier. 3 figures, 3 hearts. He didn't know what this was yet, but it was becoming something. He had just turned off the desk lamp when he heard it, a soft shuffle, like bare feet on polished floor. Emma. She stood in the doorway of his study, jacket sleeves tugged over her hands again. Her hair was messy now, sleep-tangled. Her teddy bear drooped from one arm. She didn't speak, just looked at him, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed. He smiled softly. Couldn't sleep. She shook her head. It's okay. He said, you can stay here a while. She padded in slowly, like she was trying not to make a mark on the world. She didn't sit, just stood by the bookshelf, staring at a picture of Lily as a baby. She was small. Emma whispered, she still is. Andrew chuckled, then caught himself. But yeah, smaller than... Emma tilted her head, then looked at him. Her eyes were clearer than he'd seen yet. Still quiet, still unsure, but open. Lily says, you're the best daddy, she said. Andrew's heart gave a small, unexpected twist. He didn't know how to answer that. He sat on the couch and patted the spot beside him. Emma hesitated, then moved closer, climbing up beside him. They sat in silence for a long moment. City lights, painting soft blue on her cheeks. She said, you don't yell. Emma added, and you check if she's warm at night. Andrew nodded. I try to be the kind of dad she deserves. Emma was quiet again. Her small fingers twisted the hem of her jacket. Then she asked, can people have more than one daddy? He looked at her then, not past her, not through her. At her, those eyes, that voice, that impossible, heartbreaking question. He didn't rush his answer. I think sometimes, he said softly, families come together in different ways. What matters isn't how it starts. What matters is who stays. Emma didn't look away. I had one, but he didn't stay. I know, he said gently. Is it okay if I want two? Andrew swallowed. He'd faced down investors, corporate boards, billion-dollar expansions. Nothing had ever mattered like this. Yeah, sweetheart, he said. It's okay. She looked down at her lap. Lily says, I can be her sister now. She told me that, too. Emma's mouth moved. Not quite a smile, but something softer than fear. Then she slid closer to him on the couch and leaned her head lightly against his arm. The next morning, Emma didn't knock. She walked into the kitchen like she belonged there. Not with boldness, but with trust. Lily was already at the table, coloring. Andrew poured juice and offered both girls a sleepy smile. Sleep okay? He asked. Emma nodded. She didn't add anything, but she didn't look away either. 11:03 AIM. A call from CPS finally came through. A caseworker had been assigned. Melissa Dunley. She'd be visiting tomorrow at 10 a.m. Andrew hung up and stared at the wall. It was happening. The system was catching up. But what would they see? Would they see a man playing hero, a stranger, overstepping? Or would they see what he saw? 2 girls sitting side by side in a world that had made room for them both. 2 dainty self-read. He started gathering documents, financials, school paperwork, apartment security logs, medical records, everything that could prove he was stable, worthy, responsible. But as the papers stacked neatly on the desk, a strange sadness settled in his chest. None of these documents could explain the way Emma had looked at him last night, or how she'd rested her head on his shoulder like it might be a home. That evening, dinner was slow, messy, joyful in a quiet, uncertain kind of way. Emma helped make salad. She stood on the same step stool she'd used to pour batter the day before. When she spilled a handful of shredded cheese, she froze. Andrew didn't say a word, just reached over, helped her scoop it back in. "No big deal," he said. "I make bigger messes than that." Emma didn't respond, but her shoulders relaxed. Later that night, Lily fell asleep, quickly face down in a coloring book. Emma lingered. She walked into Andrew's room, holding her teddy bear by one arm. "Do I have to call you anything?" she asked. He sat up on the bed, surprised. "Only if you want to." She stood there, thinking, then nodded. Okay, that was all. She didn't say what she'd decided. But the next morning, when she asked him to tie her shoes, she said it softly. "Daddy, can you help?" She didn't test the word, she trusted it. And in that single word, whispered like a secret. Andrew felt everything change. Chapter 4. The System Doesn't See Stories. 6. Seisicha. Bim. Andrew Carter had hosted prime ministers, negotiated mergers in skyscrapers from Zurich to Tokyo, but he had never been this nervous, straightening a pillow. The sun hadn't even crested the horizon, but the house was already buzzing with quiet energy. He'd ironed his shirt twice. Lily was up early, choosing dresses for both herself and Emma, matching blue ones with tiny white stars. "We want to look like sisters," Lily explained. Emma didn't protest. She let Lily pull the dress over her head, let her braid her hair in soft loops, let her tape a crayon-drawn name tag to her bedroom door again, just in case the first one wasn't enough. Andrew watched it all from the hallway, the simple, invisible bonds forming in places the system never looked. 9. 28. Emma sat on the living room floor, stacking crayons into neat towers. Lily bounced beside her, humming a song that had no melody. Andrew stood by the window, watching the clouds roll in over the lake. The air felt thick, like a storm waiting to crack. He checked his watch again. 9:45. He'd prepared everything: financial statements, proof of income, emergency plans, security logs, medical insurance for dependents, letters from Lily's school. All of it sat in a neat folder on the coffee table, but none of it could prove what really mattered. That Emma no longer flinched when a cabinet door slammed, that she laughed out loud when Lily spilled juice and called it lava, that she called him daddy, whispered, "But certain." 9:57. The doorbell rang. Everything stopped. Emma's eyes widened. Her body stilled. Lily reached over and gripped her hand. "It's okay," she whispered. "She's just here to meet you." Andrew opened the door. A tall woman in her mid-40s stood outside, clipboard pressed to her chest, ID badge clipped to her coat. "Mr. Carter?" she asked. "Melissa Dunley, CPS." He nodded, stepped aside. "Thank you for coming." She entered with polite efficiency, eyes scanning the space, not unkindly, but clinically, like someone trained to find risk between the lines. She declined coffee, took the seat across from the girls. "Emma," she said gently, "can I ask you a few questions?" Emma froze, her fingers clenched tighter around Lily's. Andrew opened his mouth to intervene, but before he could speak, Lily whispered, "Just be yourself. That's more than enough." Emma nodded, barely. Melissa's tone softened. "Do you feel safe here?" Emma nodded again. "Do you like living with Mr. Carter?" This time, Emma whispered, "Yes." Melissa's pen scratched quietly. "Has he ever made you feel afraid or uncomfortable?" Emma shook her head quickly. Then, surprising everyone, she said clearly, "He makes pancakes. He never yells. He checks if I'm warm." Melissa blinked, paused, wrote that down slowly. "Thank you," she said. "You can go play now." "Sweetheart." The girls went upstairs, Emma still holding Lily's hand. "29. Melissa turned to Andrew, Her questions came in formal tones: employment history, background checks, fire safety, emergency plans, intentions for long-term care. He answered calmly. Honestly, I don't want to foster her temporarily, he said. I want to be whatever she needs, for as long as she needs it. Melissa raised an eyebrow. You understand? This is highly unusual. You have no legal connection to this child, no background in foster care. This will require extensive review. Andrew met her eyes. I understand the system, he said, but I also understand children. I've watched this one start to breathe again in just 3 days. That should count for something. Melissa didn't argue. She stood, glanced toward the stairs. Emma was peeking through the banister, watching. Melissa paused. Her eyes softened. I'll do what I can, she said quietly. After she left, the house held stillness again, but it was a different kind of silence now. Andrew walked upstairs and found both girls back in Lily's room, drawing side by side. Emma looked up. Is she taking me away? Andrew didn't hesitate. No, she's just learning what I already know, that you belong here. Emma didn't smile. She simply nodded and went back to coloring. But later, when she passed him in the hallway, she slipped her small hand into his and held on a little longer than usual. He didn't say a word, just squeezed back. That night, as he tucked her into bed, Emma looked up at him with wide, serious eyes. Do I have to go back to the place with the gray doors? Andrew felt something twist in his chest. Not if I can help it, he said softly, brushing her hair back. She nodded once, rolled over, clutched Lily's old stuffed bunny to her chest, and within minutes, she was asleep. Andrew didn't leave the room right away. He sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the moonlight pooling on the hardwood. He thought of Rachel, a woman he'd never met, a mother, still unconscious, in a hospital bed. He thought of how love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just presence. Sometimes it's not walking away. He didn't know what CPS would decide, didn't know how long he had, but he knew one thing for sure. Emma Green was not going back to being no one's child, not if he had breath in his body. The system had files, checklists, protocols, but love had waffles and blankets, and the kind of silence that felt like home. Chapter 5. The distance between two heartbeats. Emma didn't say much the morning she was supposed to see her mother again. She just sat at the table in her borrowed pajamas, slowly stirring her juice with the tip of her spoon. No questions, no smiles, just quiet. Lily was the one who packed the bag, a stuffed bunny, 2 crayon drawings, and a juice box. She even added a scribbled note in purple. For your mommy. From your sister? Andrew drove in silence. The city outside was waking up, busy and loud, but inside the car, it was still and tight. When they pulled up to the hospital, Emma stared up at the building like it was made of ice. Do you want to wait a few more minutes? He asked gently. Emma shook her head. So they went in. Rachel Green looked impossibly small in the hospital bed, pale, fragile, her arms thin beneath the gown. She was sitting up, but barely. Her hair was dull, her face hollow. Still, her eyes lit up the moment Emma walked through the door. Emma didn't run to her. She froze. For a few long seconds, she just stood in the doorway, staring. Then she moved. Quick, quiet, not to embrace her mother, but to press herself into the side of the bed, burying her face in the blanket. Arms wrapped tightly around the thin cotton, like it was all that was left of a memory. Rachel reached out, trembling fingers threading gently through Emma's hair. I missed you, she whispered. Andrew didn't speak. He stayed back, hands folded, heart thudding in his chest. This wasn't the reunion he'd imagined. It was messier, quieter, like watching someone try to remember a language they used to speak. The whole visit lasted maybe 10 minutes. On the drive home, Emma kept her gaze locked on the window. She didn't cry. She didn't talk. Just sat there, her stuffed bunny clutched tight in her lap. It wasn't until they were almost back that she finally said something. "She's still my mommy," she whispered, but it didn't feel like before. She felt far away. Andrew reached back, fingers brushing over her small hand. "You don't have to understand it all right now," he said. "Just know you're loved, no matter what." Emma didn't answer, but she didn't let go of his hand. Either that night, she asked to sleep in Lily's room. No hesitation, no whisper. Just a small voice at bedtime saying, "Can I stay in here tonight?" Andrew nodded. The girls curled up together, arms overlapping, two heads on one pillow. Lily whispered something that made Emma smile, one of those tired, crooked ones that only kids know how to make at the end of a long day. He stood in the doorway, watching, didn't say anything. Didn't need to. The next day, the hospital called. Rachel wanted to speak to him alone. No lawyers, no forms, just a meeting. He didn't hesitate. She was sitting up when he arrived. Clearer this time. The first thing she said wasn't about Emma. It was about him. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not leaving her." He didn't respond right away, just sat in the visitor chair beside the bed, listening. "She used to hide behind my legs when she was scared," Rachel said. Voice breaking? "I never wanted to end up here, but I did. And I don't know how to undo that." Andrew kept his voice low. "You don't have to undo anything. You just need to heal." Rachel turned her head. Her eyes were bloodshot, but sharp. "She calls you Daddy." "Sometimes," he said, quietly. "Only when she feels safe." Rachel looked down at her lap. "I don't have a place to bring her, or a job, or even the strength to stand most days, but I still love her. I know. I want to do what's right for her, even if that means she stays with you." Andrew was stunned by how direct it was, how much it sounded like surrender and grace in the same breath. "I'm not trying to take her," he said softly. "But if you decide you can't, I'll make sure she never has to question if she's wanted." Rachel nodded. Then she said the one thing that would stay with him longer than any court ruling. "Just promise me she won't forget I tried." He met her gaze without flinching. "I promise." When he got home, the sun was beginning to set. The girls had built a blanket fort in the living room. Lily poked her head out first and shouted, "Daddy's home." Emma followed, crawling out with a pink-flushed face and wild hair. Her giggles buried in his chest as she hugged him hard like she never wanted to let go. She didn't ask what happened at the hospital. She didn't need to, because that night, as Andrew tucked her in, she didn't look scared anymore. She looked found. And maybe that was all the answer they needed for now. Chapter 6. Just be honest. It was Lily who sensed the tension first. She kept glancing between Andrew and Emma that morning, her little fingers brushing against Emma's hand as they sat on the living room floor, drawing flowers and animals, and a house that looked suspiciously like theirs. But even through the quiet hum of cartoons and crayons and the smell of toast, something felt different. Because today, someone was coming. Not a guest, not a friend, someone official. Andrew had woken early. He hadn't slept much the night before. He spent the morning pacing the apartment, straightening picture frames that didn't need straightening, fluffing pillows that were already perfect. He'd hosted city mayors and billionaire investors in this home, but nothing, not even hostile boardrooms, made his hands shake the way they did when he rechecked the list Monica had sent him. Documents were stacked on the table, folders labeled with clinical terms: income verification, security certification, emergency plans, child stability, observation reports. It all looked so tidy, but none of it said what actually mattered. That last night, Emma had fallen asleep with her hand curled into his shirt, that she no longer tiptoed through the house, but walked freely quietly. Yes, but freely. That she'd asked for seconds at breakfast, that she'd started to laugh. At 9:58 la. The doorbell rang. Emma stiffened. Andrew felt it immediately, how she inched just a little closer to Lily. Her back straightened. Her eyes dropped. He crouched beside them, his voice soft. "You don't have to say anything. You don't want to," he said. "Just be yourself. That's more than enough." Emma didn't answer, but she nodded. Her tiny fingers gripped Lily's. They walked to the couch together. Andrew opened the door. The woman standing there was tall, in her 40s, with a no-nonsense haircut and a clipboard clutched tightly to her chest. Her badge read, Melissa Dunley, CPS. She gave him a polite, businesslike nod. "Mr. Carter, thank you for your time. Come in," Andrew said, stepping aside. She walked in, like she'd done this 1,000 times because she probably had. Her eyes moved fast, scanning everything. The floors, the cabinets, the girls. She declined coffee. She didn't sit down. "Emma," she said, voice lighter now. "Can I ask you a few questions?" Emma looked at Lily first, then Andrew, then back to Melissa. She nodded. Melissa sat across from them. "Do you feel safe here?" she asked gently. Emma nodded again. "Do you like living with Mr. Carter?" This time, Emma's voice came out small, but clear. "Yes." Melissa scribbled something onto her form. "Has he ever made you feel afraid?" Emma shook her head fast. Then, quietly, "He makes pancakes with us. He doesn't yell. He checks on me at night." Melissa's eyebrows lifted just slightly. She didn't smile, but something softened around her mouth. After the girls went upstairs to play, the tone shifted. Melissa turned to Andrew. Her voice took on a clipped edge. "You understand, this isn't standard. You have no prior connection to the child, no foster training, no legal guardianship. This will require deep review." Andrew nodded, steady. "I'm not fostering her temporarily. I want to be her permanent guardian, as long as she needs, even if that means forever." Melissa glanced at the paperwork on the table. "This all looks in order. Your background is clean. Your financials are more than sufficient." She hesitated. "But the system doesn't make decisions based on finances alone." "It shouldn't," Andrew said. He walked to the fridge and took something off with care. A crayon drawing of 3 stick figures, 2 small, 1 tall. 3 red hearts floated above their heads. He handed it to her. "This is what matters," he said. "That she drew this after 3 days here. That she calls my daughter her sister. That last night she called me daddy." Melissa looked at the drawing, then at him. "You're aware," she said quietly, "that this process could take months." "Yes, and that her biological mother, though incapacitated, is still alive. If she recovers, everything changes. I'm not here to replace her," he said. "I'm just here to give Emma a safe place to land, however long she needs it." Melissa didn't speak for a moment. Then she nodded once. "I'll submit my report. You'll be contacted about the next steps." She turned to leave, but paused near the stairs. Emma was sitting just at the top, one hand gripping the banister. Her eyes locked on the social worker. Melissa met her gaze, and something passed between them, silent but understood. "I'll do what I can," Melissa said softly, more to herself than anyone else. After she left, the house stayed quiet. Andrew finally let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He walked upstairs and found both girls in Lily's room again, coloring side by side like nothing had happened. Emma looked up. "Is she taking me away?" "No," Andrew said, without pause. "She's just learning what I already know, that you belong here." Emma didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just picked up a yellow crayon and went back to coloring. But later, as she passed him in the hallway, she slipped her hand into his, held on just a little longer, and didn't let go. That night, when he tucked her in, she stared at him seriously. "Do I have to go back to the place with the gray doors?" Andrew knelt beside her bed. "Not if I can help it," he said, brushing her hair off her forehead. She nodded once, curled up around her bunny, and was asleep before he even stood up. He sat outside her door for a long time afterward. Not because she needed him to, but because he needed to, because what mattered couldn't be printed on any form. Not the way her breathing slowed when she felt safe. Not the way she whispered daddy like it was the beginning of a prayer. The system saw custody. He saw family, and tonight, in the quiet, between two rooms, filled with crayons and breathing, love had already made its choice. Chapter 7. I don't want to leave again. The courthouse looked nothing like what Emma imagined. There were no statues or spiral staircases like in Lily's storybooks, just long white hallways that echoed too much, and cold floors that made her shoes sound loud. She didn't say anything as they entered, but she didn't let go of Andrew's hand either. Andrew had woken before dawn. Long before his alarm, he lay still in the dark, staring at the ceiling as the city outside slowly woke around him. Every scenario played in his mind, every possible question, every reason they might say no. This was it. Not a business deal, not a contract, not even a risk. This was his family, and someone else had the power to take it away. Down the hall, Lily slept like she always did. Books and socks and stuffed animals scattered like petals. Emma slept differently, tight, wrapped in the same pink blanket she'd used since the first night. She hadn't asked about Court, not directly, but Andrew knew she felt it, in the way she watched him iron his shirt twice, in the extra kiss he gave her at breakfast, in the way Lily held her hand just a little more often than usual. Monica met them at the courthouse doors. She knelt to talk to Emma before they went inside. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to, she said softly. Just tell the truth. That's always enough. Emma nodded. She clutched her bunny in one hand, Andrew in the other. The courtroom was quiet. Not many people, no jury, just a judge with gray hair and sharp eyes, reading a file as thick as a phone book. On one side, CPS. On the other, Andrew, Monica, and the girls. Rachel wasn't there in person. She was still too weak, but she had submitted a letter. Monica had read it to Andrew the night before. It still rang in his ears. I love my daughter enough to let her be safe, even if it's not with me. The judge spoke first, voice calm, deliberate. We are here today to address the guardianship status of Emma Green. She summarized everything: the hospital records, the CPS reports, the temporary custody, the statement from Rachel. Andrew stood when asked. He answered every question plainly. He didn't embellish, didn't dramatize, just told the truth. How Emma had stopped flinching, how she called Lily her sister, how she had started whispering daddy in the dark when no one else was listening. She's not an obligation, he said. She's not a gesture. She's my child, even if the paperwork isn't finished yet. Then the judge looked at Emma. Sweetheart, would you like to say anything? The room held its breath. Emma slipped off her chair slowly. Her shoes made that same soft sound as they had in the hallway. She walked to Andrew and stood beside him, her fingers gripping the fabric of his blazer. She looked very small in her blue dress and white tights, but when she spoke, her voice was clear. I want to stay with Daddy and Lily. The judge blinked. Emma continued, her voice even. I like it when Lily reads to me, and I like when Daddy checks if I'm warm at night. And when I'm scared, they don't laugh at me. The judge leaned forward. Do you know who your mommy is? Emma nodded. She's still my mommy, but she said it's okay if I stay for now. And do you want to stay? Emma didn't hesitate. I don't want to leave again. That was all, but it was everything. The judge was silent for a long time. Then she closed the file, folded her hands, and looked straight at Andrew. Mr. Carter, this is an uncommon case, but after reviewing the evaluations, the statements, and what I've just witnessed, I am granting you temporary full guardianship of Emma Green, effective immediately. Andrew didn't breathe for a moment. Then finally he exhaled. Emma turned and buried her face into his coat. Lily ran from her seat and threw her arms around both of them. It wasn't a victory. It was a beginning. Outside the courtroom, Monica gave him a quiet nod. "You did it," she said. "All three of you did." Andrew crouched down, took both of Emma's hands. "You okay?" She nodded, eyes glassy but calm. "Can we go home now?" "Yeah," he smiled. "We're going home." The drive back was quiet. The girls leaned against each other in the back seat, heads resting together. And Andrew. He kept glancing at them in the mirror. Sunlight poured through the windshield as they turned onto their street soft. Golden, warm. It didn't feel like the end of a fight. It felt like the start of something real. He didn't win a case today. He won the right to stay. And in that quiet, sleepy backseat, family finally felt like a place no one could be taken from. Chapter 8. The sound of little feet. The papers were signed. The court had spoken. The system, for once, had said yes. But it wasn't the judge's words that changed the rhythm of the Carter household. It was the sound of two sets of small feet slapping softly against the hardwood floors. The sound of laughter rising from the kitchen when orange juice spilled and no one got upset. The sound of Emma humming when she colored, not to fill the silence, but because she forgot to be afraid. 3 days had passed since the hearing. The folder from court still sat unopened on Andrew's desk. He hadn't touched it. He didn't need to, because the real evidence was everywhere. Emma now left her shoes in the middle of the hallway, something she never would have dared a week ago. She asked questions now, not about whether she could stay, but about things like, why are clouds white? Where do pigeons go at night? Did you ever eat cereal for dinner when you were little? And Andrew, he answered every single one. Lily had taken to big sistering with full authority. She taught Emma how to braid hair, how to fold paper animals, how to decorate a secret club corner in the living room, using couch cushions and glitter glue. And Emma, she started whispering fewer things to Lily and more things to Andrew. One morning, he overheard them playing. They were pretending to run a school for stuffed animals. Lily was the teacher. Emma, the baby. A row of plush bears sat on the floor in perfect attention. At one point, Emma paused. "What if my real mommy wakes up?" she asked. Lily didn't even blink. "Then she'll be proud you found a second home too." Andrew had to leave the room. There was something about the way she said it so certain, so soft, that cracked him open. That Friday, his phone rang. It was the hospital. Rachel Green had regained full consciousness. "She's alert," the doctor said, asking questions. "She remembers Emma." Andrew sat down slowly. Relief hit first, then something more complicated, because now everything could change again. The next morning, he sat the girls down at breakfast. Emma was focused on stacking blueberries on her toast. Andrew folded his hands and said gently, "Emma, your mommy woke up. She's still weak, but she's asking to see you." Emma stopped moving. The toast sat untouched in her hands. "Do I have to go back?" Andrew shook his head. "Not today. Just a visit. Just to see her." Emma looked to Lily first, as she always did. Lily reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "I'll come too." And so they went together. The hospital room was warm, with too many machines and not enough softness. Rachel looked stronger this time, her face fuller, her voice firmer, but her eyes were still glassy when Emma entered. Emma didn't run this time. She walked slowly, carefully, then stood by the bed. Rachel reached out, not quickly, not demandingly, just an open hand. Emma stepped into it, let her mother's fingers wrap around hers. "You've gotten taller," Rachel said, voice cracking. Emma nodded. "I missed you," Rachel added. Emma looked down. "Me too." But there was distance in her voice. Not anger, not rejection, just distance, like remembering someone from a dream. On the drive home, Emma sat quietly in the back seat. After several minutes, she spoke. "She's still my mommy." Long pause. But it didn't feel like before. She felt far away. Andrew didn't say much. He didn't have to. He just reached back, let her hold his hand the rest of the way home. That night, Emma asked to sleep in Lily's room again. They curled into each other, two girls wrapped in a single blanket, whispering until sleep came. Andrew watched from the hallway, leaning against the doorframe. No legal paper, no judge, no system could ever see what he was seeing. This wasn't foster care. This was family. In the days that followed, Rachel didn't rush. She didn't demand anything. Instead, she asked to speak with Andrew again. Just him. When he visited the hospital, she looked tired, but clearer, more steady. "She still calls you Daddy?" she asked. Andrew nodded. "I didn't expect her to hold on to me," Rachel said. "But I also didn't expect her to let go so easily." "She hasn't let go," Andrew replied. "She's just holding someone else too." Rachel's hands trembled in her lap. "I don't want to fight you. I don't want to win," Andrew said. "I just want her to be safe, loved, whole." Rachel looked at the window. "I don't have a job or a place to go. I'm not ready. I don't even know if I ever will be." "Then let's not decide that today," he said gently. She turned to him again, eyes tired, voice raw. "Promise me something. Anything. Tell her I tried. I will. Tell her I sang to her when she was a baby. I promise." When Andrew got home, the girls had made a card for Rachel. Crayon hearts, glitter glue, a small drawing of Emma holding hands with Rachel and Andrew. 3 figures, 2 homes, 1 heart. That night, Emma crawled onto the couch with a book in her hands. Andrew looked up from his laptop, surprised. "Can we read together?" she asked. Always, she nestled into his side, opened the book in her lap, and halfway through, her voice came again. "If my mommy gets better, do I have to go away?" Andrew turned the page slowly, looked down at her. "I don't know what the future looks like," he said honestly, "but I know this. You'll always have a home here. You'll always have me." She was quiet for a moment. "Even if she wants me back." "Even then," he said, "you'll never be without someone who loves you." Emma rested her head on his chest, didn't speak again, didn't need to. Her breathing slowed, and right there, in the middle of that quiet living room, Andrew held his daughter and finally believed it himself. It wasn't about choosing one home over another. It was about letting love make room. And in his arms, she finally slept, like she believed she belonged. Chapter 9. Thank you for finding me. Autumn came softly. The city began to change, leaf by leaf, tree by tree. Mornings were now cooler. The skyline misted over with quiet gold. And inside the Carter home, the transformation was even deeper, quieter, but unmistakable. Emma didn't walk through rooms like a visitor anymore. She skipped, sang to herself under her breath, left her drawings in every room. And sometimes, her socks too. Once, Andrew found her shoes in the fridge. When he asked her why, she just shrugged and whispered, "Because they're warm in there." He laughed for a full minute. She beamed. Rachel's recovery was slow, but steady. She remained in a rehabilitation facility outside the city. She and Emma video called every few days, now short talks at first, filled with silences and shy smiles. Emma sat stiffly during those first few calls, unsure how to balance both truths in her heart, the mother she loved and the father she'd come to trust. But Rachel never pushed. She asked about school, listened to Emma describe her favorite cereal, admired the lopsided drawings she held up to the screen, and every time, before the call ended, she said, "I'm proud of you. Thank you for being brave. Tell Daddy I said thank you." Emma always did. One night, after the girls were in bed, Andrew stayed up late reviewing paperwork. Monica had outlined the process. The next step was formal guardianship, no longer temporary. Adoption. He hadn't said it aloud yet, not to Rachel. Not to Emma, not even to himself, but the word lived inside him now, like a seed, rooted, growing quietly beneath every bedtime story. And lunchbox, packed with sliced apples and goldfish crackers. 2 weeks later, his phone rang. Rachel's voice on the other end was soft, but firm. "I've thought about this for a long time," she said, "and I know what I want." Andrew braced himself, but her next words undid him. "I want you to adopt her, officially, permanently." Silence filled the space between them. Then Rachel continued, slower this time. "I love her, and I know you do too. But what matters more is that she knows it every day, without question, and I can't give her that right now. But you can." Andrew pressed his hand to his chest, trying to breathe. "You're sure?" he asked. "I'm not surrendering," Rachel said. "I'm choosing what's best for her. She already chose you. I'm just catching up." The adoption process took time, months of signatures, court dates, home visits. But this time, there was no tension, just waiting. And building every form was a stone in the foundation of something permanent. Emma didn't know every detail, but she sensed it. She began drawing pictures with the word family at the top. In one of them, there was a rainbow above 4 stick figures: Lily, Emma, Andrew, and Snow, the stuffed bunny. She handed it to him one morning before school. "This is our house," she said simply. He didn't need to ask if she meant it. On the morning of the final hearing, the sky was soft and overcast. No reporters, no speeches, just a quiet courtroom. And the 3 of them, Andrew, Emma, and Lily, dressed in matching navy blue. The judge, the same one from months ago, looked through the documents, then looked at Emma. "Miss Emma Green," she said warmly, "do you understand what today means?" Emma nodded. "It means I don't have to leave." The judge smiled. "That's right, Mr. Carter. It's official. She's your daughter now. Congratulations." Andrew turned toward her, knelt. Emma didn't say anything. She just threw her arms around his neck and whispered, "I knew I belonged." That afternoon, they celebrated with ice cream. Lily picked strawberry. Emma chose chocolate with marshmallows. Andrew didn't eat much. He was too busy watching them. 2 little girls, laughing so hard their spoons fell from their hands. This wasn't a fairy tale ending. It was something better. It was real. Later that night, as the girls got ready for bed, Emma handed Andrew a folded piece of paper. Inside was a drawing, more refined than before, still colorful, still crooked, but confident. At the top, in wobbly blue crayon, were the words, "Thank you for finding me." Andrew didn't frame it. He taped it to the wall beside Lily's baby photo. No announcement, no speech, just the quiet truth that some families are born and others are found. She didn't ask to be saved. She only asked to stay. And when he said yes, he became the father he never knew he was waiting to be. Chapter 10. The house where no one leaves. The seasons shifted. Autumn melted into winter. Snow dusted the city in softness, like a whispered apology for all the chaos that came before. And in a tall apartment overlooking the skyline, a house that used to echo with silence now echoed with giggles, footsteps, and the occasional off-key Christmas song sung way too early in the season. But no one minded, because the silence was gone, and silence, Andrew Carter had learned, was rarely peaceful. Emma changed, not in the way people notice first. Her hair was still wild most mornings. She still wore mismatched socks and refused to eat carrots unless Lily pretended they were magical. But she changed in the way that mattered most. She spoke more. She laughed harder. She asked for things extra syrup, a longer story, a nightlight left on just a little longer. She belonged, not because the court said so, because she believed it. One evening, just before Christmas, Emma climbed into Andrew's lap with a stack of construction paper. "We're making our family book," she said, like a scrapbook, but with only the stuff that matters. He smiled. What counts as stuff that matters? Emma tilted her head like she couldn't believe he'd asked something so obvious. Firsts. Firsts. First pancake. First time I didn't cry when someone yelled downstairs. First time I called you daddy and didn't whisper it. She looked up at him, completely serious. First time I didn't feel like I was just visiting someone else's life. Andrew didn't answer. He couldn't, so he just hugged her close, and that was enough. Rachel kept in touch. They had established a rhythm video calls once a week. Letters, quiet understanding. Sometimes the conversations were light. Sometimes they were emotional, but never bitter. Rachel was healing in her own way, and she had given Emma something no court could require: permission to love Andrew without guilt. Emma still had moments when a slammed door made her flinch, moments when she asked if she'd done something wrong, just because someone was tired, but they didn't scare her the way they used to, because now she knew who she could run to, and he was always there. One night, while Andrew was tucking her in, Emma looked up with eyes full of something bigger than a bedtime question. What if I forget the bad parts? He blinked, surprised. What do you mean? Like, what if I forget what it felt like to be scared? Is that bad? Andrew leaned down, brushing the hair back from her forehead. No, sweetheart, that's called healing. Emma thought about it, then smiled. I think I'm getting really good at that. By spring, their family book was full, not just with photos, but with stories. The time Lily convinced Emma to taste wasabi. The time Andrew accidentally used salt instead of sugar in pancakes. The night Emma asked if her bunny could be the ring bearer if he ever got married again. Lily, naturally, volunteered to officiate. One afternoon, Emma brought home a school project, a family tree. She'd drawn 4 leaves. Her name, Lily's, Andrew's, and Rachel's, and in the center, home. I wasn't sure if I had to pick just one, she told Andrew, so I made us all part of it. He couldn't speak, just nodded and hugged her until she giggled and said, "You're squishing me." That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Andrew stood at the kitchen sink, looking out over the lights of the city. So much had changed. The house, his heart, the meaning of everything. He didn't plan for any of this. Didn't expect to be called daddy again. Didn't expect a second chance at fatherhood to come in the shape of a quiet girl with big eyes and 2 small shoes. But here they were, a family made not by blood, not by plans, but by choice and love that stayed. This wasn't the house with the corner office view, or the one with dinner parties and imported rugs. This was the house where pancakes fixed tears, where bedtime stories turned strangers into sisters. This was the house where no one left anymore, and that made it home. Families that choose you. The light in the apartment was warm, not the cold. Perfect light of real estate, brochures, or boardroom windows, but the soft, lived-in glow that comes from a kitchen light left on too late. A blanket still on the couch, and 2 little girls sleeping just down the hall. Andrew sat at his desk, the city skyline behind him. But his eyes weren't on the buildings. They were on the drawing pinned beside Lily's baby photo. 4 stick figures under a rainbow. A bunny, a heart, and 6 small words written in careful crayon. "Thank you for finding me." He touched the paper lightly, not to straighten it, just to feel the texture. The truth. He thought about the first day he met Emma, a child sitting barefoot on the school pavement, still and small and invisible to the world. And about the moment she looked up at him and whispered, "Daddy," not with belief, but with hope. She hadn't asked for much, not a rescue, not a promise, just a chance. And somehow, that had been enough to open something in him he didn't know he'd closed. This wasn't a story about a man saving a child. It was a story about how love shows up in unexpected places, sometimes in courtrooms, sometimes in bedtime stories, sometimes in the shape of a tiny hand that finally reaches back. It wasn't perfect. It was never easy, but it was true. And that made it enough. If there's something this story leaves behind, maybe it's this. Family isn't built on plans. It's built on presence, on the decision to stay, especially when things get messy, on the quiet promise. You don't have to be perfect to be loved. So if you've ever wondered whether you're worthy of a second chance, or whether healing can happen inside an ordinary apartment with mismatched socks and paper hearts taped to the fridge, let this be your answer. Yes, and if this story moves something in you, if you felt seen or softened, or just want to believe in love that stays, then the next story goes even deeper. See you there. We're just getting started. We'd love to hear from you. What did this story make you feel? Drop your thoughts in the comments and rate it between 0 and 10. Subscribe and turn on the bell so you're always updated. More inspiring stories are waiting. Click here to watch them.